So you guys remember these memes from Turning Point USA that say taxation is theft? This is something that they found the need to, print onto signs and have their little advocates, their people carry around. As you can see in the lower left-hand corner, the taxation is theft sign. Turning Point USA. Taxation is theft, folks. According to Turning Point USA, an organization that's founded and headed by chump Charlie Kirk, who we are now going to look at. This is the Charlie Kirk Show. Charlie Kirk's going to go off on his thing about how people should buy American to save America. But listen closely to how he starts this segment that he does on his podcast. Listen to this. Bring it back a bit.
$1 a year ad campaigns, no value adds to your contract that you end up paying for. So here's the deal. Grab your mobile phone and dial pound 250 and say the keyword Charlie Kirk, and you'll save $250 off any iPhone, including the new iPhone SE. That's pound 250 and say keyword Charlie Kirk.
Use Charlie Kirk's promo code to buy a new iPhone. He does this right before he gets into his segment on Buy American to Save America. Why do I bring this up? Well, let's take a look at where iPhones are manufactured, as you can see right here. Now, this is a Business Insider story from 2016, so this might be a little outdated, but has an infographic of where the parts of an iPhone come from. And as you can see, China, Japan, Korea, California, China. So he starts a segment about Buy American by encouraging his audience, giving out promo codes to buy products that are made in various countries. Of course, you might say, well, Apple's an American company. But this is a more up-to-date story. This is from LifeWire, written on September 11th of this year, 2020. Where do iPhone components come from? And according to this, it's from Germany, China, Japan, Switzerland, USA. What was all that Buy American to Save America talk? Back to Charlie Kirk. He wants you to use his promo code to buy a product that is not completely made in America.
Your Talk USA, simply smarter wireless. So I was flipping through realclearpolitics.com. I encourage you guys to check out this website. It's phenomenal. It's become my go-to news aggregator, that and Revolver News, revolver.news. I have to say that realclearpolitics.com, there is this article out there that really caught my eye, and I want to dissect it because it's a very important point, and it's something that is just outside of the general news cycle, but we all talk about. It said, both candidates support Buy American. Both are wrong. It's by Andrew Wilford. Andrew Wilford, at the end of the article, identifies himself as a policy analyst with the National Taxpayer Union Foundation, a nonprofit dedicated to tax policy, research, and education at all levels of government. He opens the article by saying this: there are plenty of differences to be found between Donald Trump and Joe Biden. But on one issue, at least they speak with one voice. Of course, on that issue, so-called Buy American regulations, and they're both wrong. So President Trump has long said that Buy American, High American is a cornerstone of his domestic policy from day one. Joe Biden, who of course plays follow the leader.
Follow the leader. Now, Charlie says this as if Buy American is a new phenomenon under Trump. And no, this is the sentiment of Buy American has been in American political discourse long before Trump ever came around. I don't know if you guys know this. I don't know where you guys grew up. I grew up in the Metro Detroit area. And I don't know how prevalent this is outside of Michigan, or if it's even still prevalent there, because I haven't lived there in 7 years. But it is frowned upon, or was when I was growing up, when I was a teenager and young adult. It was frowned upon to drive a foreign-made car, because Detroit, home of the big three, the automotive industry, it's all in Detroit. I think all three are still headquartered in Detroit. And I remember I had one of my aunts bought a Honda Civic And after owning it for a few months, she one day got a call from my uncle, her brother, who said, hey, I really like that bumper sticker on your car. It was really funny. And she's like, what are you talking about? I don't have any bumper stickers on my car. And he said, really? I could have swore that was you. It had me laughing. Anyway, it must have been someone else. Have a nice day. And the next day, she went to her car, her Honda Civic, and noticed one of those magnet bumper stickers that you put on people's car as a joke. And it read, tired of having a job? Keep buying foreign.
I made a funny.
And I remember one of the second car I bought shortly after I got graduated college. I bought a Nissan Sentra, Japanese-made car, and I never nothing ever got too hostile. Like no one ever smashed my windows or anything, but occasionally, like if I was walking outside of the store to my car, I'd occasionally get someone telling me, "Hey man, you should buy American. What are you doing? Buy American." Anyway, the point is that this is not a new phenomenon under Trump.
That's what he does. He saw the effectiveness of that and rolled out his own $700 billion plus Buy American campaign in early June of this year. But Andrew Wilford, who's a policy analyst with the National Taxpayer Union Foundation, thinks that they're wrong because we want products made in our country. He said this while criticizing Trump. Well, President Trump signed into 2017 tax reform law, which encouraged foreign income repatriation and headquartering in the United States. He has also curtailed foreign trade in many harmful ways. Import taxes on American consumers have more than doubled under President Trump, costing the average American household $555 a year.
So Trump's tariffs have, according to the piece's reading, have cost Americans, the average American, $500, or as you say, American taxpayer, $550 a year.
Well, never mind that President Trump signed the Tax Cuts and Jobs Act, which saved an average American family $2,000 a year.
Oh, okay, so this is a big comeback. But what about the tax cuts that saved Americans $2,000 a year? Now, I'll get to what's wrong with that way of thinking in a second, but just on paper, this is such an insane way to think about things. Because think about it. If you had a choice between having $1,500, an extra $1,500 a year, or an extra $2,000 a year, which would you choose? And if you're so obsessed with buying American to save America, well, guess what? You can use that extra $500 to spend on American products or lend to someone, help out your fellow American in need, if that's what you want to do with your money. So just the way he frames it is so insane because, yeah, you could say, oh, well, the Trump tax cuts had some benefits to the economy, even though that's not the point of taxation. Because here I'm thinking taxation is theft. That's why it's wrong. That's why you oppose taxation. But now Charlie over here, oh, well, actually, if you look at the tax cuts, it's an overall net gain. This is how he thinks about economics. He's not taking a stand on principle to say, look, taxation is theft and we should have the least amount of taxes possible. Instead, with Charlie, he has to put on his little MAGA skirt and get his little MAGA pom-poms to cheerlead for Donald Trump, so he plays these bullshit comparison games. Which is on top of the fact, though, I know it started with the pieces reading, but you don't really try to think of things on like, oh, the average American this, which is, I would say, an egalitarian way of thinking about things. Because what's not factored in is the fact that this is that the Trump tariffs and the trade wars in general have had a disastrous impact on a lot of businesses. If you look at the Cato Institute, this is by Scott Lincecum, who I'm a fan of, talks about 202 companies hurt by Trump's tariffs. And I won't go through all of them because, as you can see, it's a long list. Harold Parker, this 124, little jittery. The Indiana farmer says, you set your goals, and when you have to go back down from your goals, it's always tough. Minnesota soybean farmer has lost $250,000 of value on his family farm due to China's retaliatory tariffs.
Uh-oh, SpaghettiOs!
But the average American got $2,000 from Trump's tax cuts. The Ohio truck parts manufacturers is worried about losing customers if it is forced to raise prices. Steel accounts for 60% of its products. But those Trump tax cuts, am I right, guys? The Houston company of Plains All-American Pipeline faces an additional $40 million in construction costs for a pipeline in the largest North American oil fields because of U.S. tariffs.
Uh-oh, SpaghettiOs!
Polaris, the company which makes boats, snowmobiles, motorcycles. Well, it's a company that I'm sure a lot of middle American small states buy from. In recreational vehicles, is raising prices to contend with the $40 million in tariff-related costs. Lot of examples. There's also this story from Yahoo News. 25 all-American companies hit by tariffs. And Ford, the automaker, is in the process of developing a restructuring plan that Morgan Stanley and analysts estimate will result in 25,000 layoffs. As of June 2019, Ford has already laid off 2,300 workers. And according to CEO Jim Hackett, said the tariffs cost the automaker $1 billion in lost profits in 2018. Caterpillar apparently lost $200 to $350 million in 2019 due to tariffs. Story continues. 3M. Estimated cost 120. I mean, look at how devastating this is, you guys. Whirlpool, $300 million in 2019. Then there's this story, the economic impact of steel and aluminum tariffs. But hey, guys, those Trump tax, if we just do it on a person-by-person basis, because that's what really matters.
By government estimations. And the repatriation of jobs from overseas spurred by the 2017 law have helped establish record low unemployment across the country. And according to Bloomberg, it said U.S.
Also, as far as the retaliatory tariffs and how Trump's trade war has devastated American farmers with overseas markets, Trump... the farm subsidies since Trump took over have tripled within the last 4 years. But hey, average Americans save $2,000. That's what really matters.
Companies repatriated cash hit $1 trillion under the tax law as the end of 2019. But then he goes deeper into why he thinks things should not be made in this country. Now, under doctrine...
Why things... See, now, notice how he's framing it. I haven't read the Real Clear Politics article he's reading, but I'm not sure if he's making the case that things should not be made in the United States. But for me, I'll frame it as freedom should be the standard. And international trade is good because you have more choices. You have more options. Americans are not going to be able to make everything that you want to buy and sell. I guess just want to buy. And a concrete example I often like to use, especially for you younger people at home. Here, let's check this out. Nintendo Switch. Where is this made? Anyone in the chat want to answer? Where's the Nintendo Switch made? Now, if I had this buy American mindset to save America, when buying a new video game console, I would have to choose Microsoft, because out of the big three console names between Nintendo, Sony, and Microsoft, well, Nintendo and Sony, they're in Japan. And do I really want my $300 going to employ some software engineers and developers in Japan? No. That's wrong. Because there are some software engineers and game developers in the state of Washington that really need to have a job. So I'm just going to buy Microsoft. Of course, take it a step further, Microsoft, they're one of those big tech companies. Woo! Let's stay in Japan. Let's talk about anime. I know a lot of you people, I know some of you people in the chat specifically are huge fans of anime and manga. You know, how dare you guys watch your Naruto and your My Hero Academia and your Sailor Moon and your Dragon Ball Z? Why watch animation and cartoons made from Japan across the pond when you could be helping employ animators at places like Disney and Warner Brothers and Cartoon Network? Although I know a lot of even American studios, American cartoons are they outsource to South Korea, from what I know. I think I researched this. I couldn't find a definitive answer, but I think Family Guy and Rick and Morty are both outsourced their animation to South Korea. I may be mistaken though. Or how about Legos? Some of you guys remember growing up playing with Legos, as Stuart says, Pokemon too. Yeah, guys, if you play Pokemon Go, turn that shit off right now and buy some mobile gaming apps that were made in America. But Legos. You know, what would you do if, Christmas comes up, you ask your parents, what would you have done when you were growing up and you were making a Christmas list and you said, I want some Legos. I want the newest Space Police or Deep Water Adventure Lego set, Pirate Lego set. And then your pops, your mums, comes back to you and says, what the fuck is this? What Legos, really? You want my hard-earned money going across the Atlantic Ocean to Denmark to keep some plastic molder in Denmark employed? What the fuck is wrong with you?
That's un-American.
Go through the catalog and only circle toys that are made in America. Now the Zoomer's like, circle catalogs? What the fuck's this guy talking about? No, IKEA's from Sweden. That's where I was going to go to next, Stuart. He says Legos is from Sweden. No, IKEA's from Sweden. Similar thing. Stuff that you build at home yourself. Those Scandinavians love selling Americans build it at home yourself stuff. But IKEA furniture. I mean, how many people go to IKEA think you're getting a good deal on a new kitchen table, a new bookshelf, a new TV nightstand that you can build at home while listening to a podcast? Well, stop. Don't go to IKEA. You don't want your money going to help some Swedish corporation.
That's un-American.
And I can go on all day with concrete examples, but those are some concretes of some products that you at home have probably bought, have probably enjoyed. And if you're really going to go all the way on this Buy American mindset, then those are some products that you should maybe think twice about buying next time.
And dogmatic Austrian economics, which
dogmatic Austrian economics. Meanwhile, he's telling everyone to dogmatically buy American, unless you're using his promo code to buy a new iPhone.
I can resonate a little bit with when it comes to monetary policy and some other things. Say that you would never want any tariffs, and you would want to have the most amount of comparative advantage possible.
So now notice how he's making this about economics. He's Austrian school, and the Austrian school, they think tariffs should be as low as possible. What happened to this, Charlie, huh? I thought taxation was theft, and now you're trying to split hairs? And for what? To save some American jobs? Now think about that for a second, because another Turning Point USA meme. I think you already saw it in one of the pictures already. Socialism sucks. And I agree, socialism does suck. And taxation is theft. But when it comes to Trump's economic policy, Charlie Kirk seems like he is totally fine with imposing taxes on Americans. For what purpose? To make sure that other Americans in society have jobs. Doesn't that kind of sound a little like socialism to you guys? Especially when you consider the consequential farm subsidies, which have tripled.
Uh-oh, SpaghettiOs!
And yet I constantly see these memes about how Trump, he's the only thing standing, he's the only thing that can save America from socialism, you guys.
Now, in a lot of different ways, I take exception with this. I used to believe that, oh yeah, why wouldn't we want to have cheaper labor markets in Southeast Asia? I mean, we get more stuff for that. And then I look at the landscape of this country. I go to places like Hamilton, Montana, or Columbus, Ohio, or Charleston, West Virginia, and I drive by countless factories that were once flourishing, endless amounts of businesses that have closed. And I asked myself the question, where is the breaking point where all of a sudden the amount of manufacturing decay that you have in your country has resulted in a permanent underclass of people that are either addicted to opioids, in a state of depression, or go to government assistance?
So what's his implication here? Is he honestly suggesting that we have an opioid crisis and an unemployment crisis, a manufacturing decay? Why? Because our import taxes aren't high enough? If only we had more import taxes over the last few decades and didn't sign NAFTA, these people wouldn't be resorting to opiates.
And then, if they go to government assistance, it'll only mean that we have to raise our taxes in the future to help pay for the welfare state for the people that were once gainfully employed.
Well, Trump's tariffs are causing farm subsidies to rise to the tune of tens of billions of dollars.
So while, yeah, that might be that we might have to pay a little bit more for a sweatshirt or a little bit more for a pair of sneakers.
Also, I want to give a shout out to Actual Justice Warrior, who he put out a video last year, I believe, about the Rust Belt. And he actually addresses this argument that Charlie Kirk is making. Because he talks about the Rust Belt and how the Rust Belt is often a political battlefield because it focuses on the Midwest swing states. And every election year, politicians, both Democrat and Republican, promise to bring jobs back to the Rust Belt, save the Rust Belt. And Actual Justice Warrior explains that the reason why the Rust Belt, the reason why jobs in manufacturing left the Rust Belt over the last few decades, mainly for two reasons. One, shipping. The reason why the Rust Belt flourished was because it was established amongst the Great Lakes and river systems, which made it easier at that time for manufacturing companies, particularly the automotive company, to move and ship their goods, because the most efficient way was to do it by shipping on rivers, by boats, and whatnot. But he also said another key factor was the innovation and advent of air conditioning, because traditionally, a big reason why manufacturing took off in the northern part of the United States, in the Midwest, was because it was better to have manufacturing there. Whereas if you had a manufacturing plant in the South, in Mississippi, with no air conditioning, it's kind of hard to make stuff there. But with the advent of air conditioning, the Midwest, the Rust Belt, started getting more competition, not only from overseas, but also from the South and the Sun Belt, where it's generally warmer and hotter in the summer and generally throughout the year. But because of air conditioning, they're now able to build manufacturing plants. And that's where a lot of manufacturing has gone the last couple decades. So I highly recommend checking out that video from Actual Justice Warrior, which if I'm putting this on YouTube, should be up in the card right there. I don't know where it is. Look in the upper right-hand corner. There we go.
Or a little bit more for a backpack. What about the total cost for the society and the culture?
The society and the culture, you guys.
And some people would say, such as Andrew Wilford, seems like a nice guy, I'd be happy to talk to him. He says that we at all costs must try to bring down the cost of production.
We must find ways to bring down the cost of production. Not a bad idea. Of course, people in a free society should be free to do that, to use their mind to figure that out. Shouldn't be done from central planners.
This is a predominant think tank mentality that in some ways has plagued our government for decades.
Oh my God, think tank mentality, trying to bring down production costs. Oh no, you guys.
Namely on the right. He continues by saying,
goddamn think tank mentality.
On this issue, neither candidate has the right vision for a productive American economy. I'd be very interested in hearing from Andrew how unproductive the American economy was prior to the Chinese coronavirus. I think the author knows that answer, but he doesn't want to talk about it.
Notice how Charlie likes to play both sides now? See, before the coronavirus, because of Trump's brilliant policies, the American economy was productive and booming and blah, blah, blah. But also, if you drive around to these these cities where the towns are empty, what happened? Well, why didn't Trump's wonderful tariffs bring their jobs back, huh? Chump Charlie. Also, another point I wanted to make, going back to the actual Justice Warrior video, which he didn't make this point, but a lot of times when talking about Rust Belt cities like Detroit and Cleveland and other cities that have been run by Democrats for the last 5 to 6 decades, Charlie used to throw Democrats under the bus for the jobs leaving places like Detroit because of regulations and high taxes and hostility toward business and whatnot. But now, it's not high enough taxes, apparently.
This article feels as if it was influenced or written on behalf of corporate interests.
Oh, no, not corporate interests, you guys.
Corporate interests that, quite honestly, are okay with the 12 million manufacturing jobs that were shipped overseas. And it's not
They're shipped overseas, you guys.
just the jobs themselves. It is the churches in those communities that then see declining tithes. It is the schools that see a declining tax base.
Oh, no. So because of a lack of taxes, jobs are leaving America, and the public schools won't get enough taxes to fund them. This is the defender of capitalism. This is Mr. Turning Point USA. This is Mr. Capitalism.
It is the small business owner
Mr. Taxation is theft.
on the side of the street, the restaurant, the laundromat. It is the sole
The laundromat that has to pay more for washers and dryers that might come from South Korea. Or where was it? One of these articles mentioned Whirlpool as a company that got hurt by the tariffs. Where is it? Right here, Whirlpool. They got hurt. Oh, but the poor laundromat. Oh no.
of these communities that fall within the weight of themselves. And it gets even worse than that. We've talked about this before on our program, where we're trying to pick apart what is driving the arson and the unrest happening in our country. Why are we seeing the repeated cycles of destruction? Who is doing this destruction? One of the major reasons this is happening in our country is because the people that are doing the destroying don't own anything.
They don't own anything. That's why people are going out. Now, consider, before May, when the riots started happening, there were still people in America that, were impoverished, didn't have anything. Why weren't people rioting then? So according to Charlie Kirk, this is another double speak that people like Charlie Kirk like to play. He'll say things like America is the greatest country. It's a land of opportunity where someone can come here poor, someone can grow up poor, and then they, by pulling themselves up by their bootstraps and hard work, they can become really rich and famous and successful and all that stuff. But now he's saying, well, now if you're poor in America, you're either going to be stuck in a hollowed out town, getting addicted to opiates, or you're going to just resort to rioting. Now, putting all that aside, what he's saying is not entirely true when you consider rioters like, Logan Paul? Or it was Jake Paul, who got busted rioting and looting in Scottsdale, Arizona. There's this story about 2 lawyers who are now facing jail time because they allegedly threw Molotov cocktails at a parked police car. There's also that affluent woman in New York who's getting brought up on criminal charges, I believe. And when they investigated her, it turned out she's from an affluent family who has lots and lots of money. So I'm not even sure what Charlie's saying here is entirely accurate. But even if it is, it contradicts his whole narrative. Oh, America is great because you can start off poor and then become rich. Or else you'll just riot and get addicted to opiates. I don't know what the fuck point he's trying to make.
They're renting. They are verticalized. They're not horizontal. One of the main reasons why...
But I would say that the rioters are mostly motivated by destructive ideas.
Why young people are taking to the streets is they're not building equity. Because when they're 27, their life looks the same when they're 32 or they're 37. In fact, despite working hard and playing by the rules.
Now, Charlie blames this on again, because people aren't buying American. He should go to these riots just show up and say, if you would just buy American, you wouldn't be here trying to burn down a small American business.
They actually don't see their lives get materially or incrementally better. A lot of the hyper-urbanization push in our country is because middle America, rural America, that used to have communities that were 20 to 30,000 people, we used to have communities like that all across the country, went from 20,000 people to 8,000 people. Where do those people go? They moved to bigger megaplex cities. They started to verticalize their lifestyle. They stopped thinking about owning land or preserving a specific cultural identity. They stopped focusing or looking at supporting the small business owner on the side of the street or the local coffee shop and said they go shop at Starbucks. Now, mind you, I'm all for the efficiency of Starbucks. I think it's a good thing that
I love that he's bringing up an example. Oh, people, they're going to Starbucks instead of the mom and pop coffee shop. This was literally an episode of South Park. It was the Underpants Gnomes episode, and the episode that introduced Tweak as a character. It was all about how the mom and pop shop, coffee shop, was being bought out and taken over by Starbucks. It's actually a really good episode. I highly recommend it.
Able to order coffee 10 minutes down the street and have it waiting for you. I think that free market innovation and enterprise is a very beautiful thing. I really do.
Beautiful thing.
However, when it becomes so hyper-corporatized.
Oh, no, not hyper-corporatization. This guy is starting to sound more and more like Kyle Kulinski.
Where the only thing that we care about is the optimal level of productivity. And you don't care about wages.
The optimal level of productivity. When I heard this part, I realized that Charlie Kirk doesn't understand a thing about economics. Because economics is ultimately driven by productivity. It's mainly driven by the mind and human effort, because productivity, in order to make productivity more efficient, you have to use your mind, whether it's Thomas Edison, doing trial and error to figure out a good filament for the light bulb, whether it's Henry Ford trying to figure out the assembly line for the automobile, whether it's the McDonald's brothers trying to figure out a good assembly line to mass produce hamburgers at a low cost, or the Bessemer steel product that process that Andrew Carnegie imported from England. Economics is ultimately driven by production, and we have galaxy brain chump Charlie over here doesn't really think productivity, efficiency and productivity is really that big of a deal. Oh, optimal productivity. Oh, who cares? So not only does Charlie Kirk, not only is he given up principles when it comes to things like taxation and freedom and capitalism, saying, oh, capitalism, free enterprise, it's great, I like it, but we can't let it get too corporatized now. And also, we shouldn't obsess over the optimal level of productivity. Not only is he given up principle, but he doesn't know a thing about economics.